Listen carefully, because I'm about to tell you something most men never hear. The woman you trust the most already knows how to lie better than anyone else in your life. And the red flags, they're right in front of you every single day. By the end of this video, you'll see what she's been hiding in plain sight. But before we dive in, hit subscribe. Not for me, but because one day you'll need this truth more than oxygen. Smash the like button and drop your city in the comments. I want to know where men are finally waking up. Red flag 1, the work chat alibi. You've probably heard this one 100 times. Sorry, I was caught up in work chats. It sounds harmless, almost boring, doesn't it? But that's exactly why it works. The world we live in runs on endless Slack threads, Teams calls, and late-night email chains. She knows that when she says work ran late, you won't argue. After all, who questions the sacred grind of corporate life? Here's the problem. Real work chats leave fingerprints. They leave tired eyes, rushed dinners, and half-finished replies on her phone. But when she uses work as a shield, you start to notice the inconsistencies. She claims she was on a late Zoom call, but her camera-ready makeup hasn't smudged. She insists her team needed her for an emergency, yet you see a notification flash on her screen. Had fun tonight, let's do it again. That's the gossip no one wants to admit. Sometimes the late-night colleagues she jokes about are not colleagues at all. She might casually mention, Brian from marketing always pings me after hours, but she won't tell you why that ping comes with so many emojis. It's all about distraction. She floods you with talk of projects and deadlines so you don't ask the questions that matter. Where was she? And who was really waiting for her? The dirty truth is this. The work chat excuse is almost impossible to disprove, unless you train yourself to listen for the silences between her explanations. Does she get defensive when you ask specifics? Does she change the subject the moment you show interest? That's not dedication to her job. That's performance under pressure. And here's what most men don't realize. The office isn't her only alibi. Sometimes, the cover story doesn't come from her phone or her boss. Sometimes, it comes from someone much closer, someone she calls her best friend. But when a friend becomes the perfect alibi, the danger cuts even deeper. And that's the next red flag. Red flag 2, the friend is alibi trick. You think her best friend is just there for brunch selfies and endless venting sessions. Think again. When a woman wants to cover her tracks, her closest friend often becomes her most reliable shield. Suddenly, every gap in her story is filled with, I was with Sarah, or we just grabbed coffee, nothing special. And because you know Sarah, because you've seen them together 100 times, you don't question it. That's exactly why it works. Here's where it gets messy. Alibis built on friendship are harder to challenge because calling them out feels like accusing two people at once. She'll casually drop details that sound airtight. Oh, Sarah picked me up after yoga, or we lost track of time laughing about work drama. But here's the gossip no one admits. Sometimes Sarah isn't even aware she's been cast as the cover story. Other times, Sarah is fully in on it, rehearsing the timeline with your wife so the story runs smooth. Watch the patterns. Does she suddenly spend more evenings with this friend than she did in the last 5 years combined? Does every unexpected delay somehow trace back to Sarah? And here's the killer detail. If you ever try to confirm the story, she gets oddly protective, even offended. Why don't you trust me? Do you really want to drag my friend into this? That defensive wall isn't about loyalty, it's about deflection. The danger isn't just in the lie itself, it's in how normal it looks. A best friend is the perfect smokescreen because society expects women to lean on each other. You'll look paranoid for doubting something that seems so natural. That's the trap, but friends can only cover so much. When the excuses pile too high, she starts looking for another shield, one she can control without anyone else's cooperation. And that's when the most common, most believable alibi of all comes into play. Because once the gym becomes her excuse, you won't just be questioning her words, you'll be questioning her routine. Red flag 3, the gym excuse. At first glance, nothing seems suspicious about someone wanting to get healthier. In fact, most men are relieved when their wife says she's hitting the gym more often. You think, good for her, she's taking care of herself. But let's cut through the illusion. The gym is one of the oldest, most believable alibis in the book, and that's why it's so dangerous. Notice the shift. She suddenly becomes committed to long workouts she never cared about before. The woman who once complained about running 10 minutes on a treadmill is now magically spending 2 hours at the gym, 4 nights a week. And yet, look closely. She walks through the door looking refreshed, hair in place, makeup untouched. Where's the sweat? Where's the sore muscles? Something doesn't add up. Here's a gossip detail people rarely admit. Many gyms don't track members closely. No one questions who comes in, who leaves early, or whether they even showed up at all. All she has to do is snap a quick mirror selfie in her leggings, send it to a friend, and suddenly the narrative is bulletproof. Look, I was definitely there. But the real workout, it wasn't on a treadmill, it was building a flawless alibi. Pay attention to the small inconsistencies. She claims she pushed herself hard, but her Apple Watch shows a workout of only 15 minutes. She tells you she was lifting weights, yet her gym bag has untouched resistance bands, still in their original packaging. Or here's another subtle sign. She talks about the people at the gym a little too much, dropping names you've never heard, weaving stories about a trainer or someone from the yoga class who seems to come up far too often. The truth is, the gym excuse works because it sounds like progress. It's the perfect mix of healthy and responsible. Who would argue with self-improvement? But when you peel back the surface, you realize the routine isn't about fitness at all. It's about freedom. Freedom to disappear for hours without a trace. And yet, as airtight as the gym alibi seems, there's one place even harder to track, one cover story, built into the palm of her hand. Because when she starts hiding behind her messaging apps, the lies get sharper, faster, and much harder to catch. Red flag 4. The messaging app Shuffle. You'd think the phone in her hand tells you everything. In reality, it hides more than it reveals. When a woman starts juggling conversations across multiple apps, that's not just convenience, it's strategy. She knows most men barely check beyond a text message, so she scatters her trail like breadcrumbs. A little WhatsApp here, a little Telegram there, a harmless Instagram DM she swears is just about memes. The gossip detail? Notifications become the perfect disguise. One night, her screen lights up at midnight and instead of a name, you see a delivery app icon she's never used before. Strange coincidence, isn't it, that the food order happens right when she left the room to call her friend? Or maybe she suddenly insists on using apps with disappearing messages, claiming it's more private or better for work. Here's the trick. She isn't just hiding conversations, she's managing timelines. She knows which app you're least likely to open. She knows how to mute threads, so they vanish from the top of her list. And she knows you'll accept her excuse when she says, "Oh, that, just a colleague from the office." But you can spot the cracks if you pay attention. Her phone is always face down, even during dinner. She replies instantly to some unknown notification, but ignores your question sitting right in front of her. She deletes entire apps, then downloads them again weeks later, pretending it's a glitch. Every action is designed to keep you off balance, second-guessing yourself, while she controls the narrative. And here's the psychological twist. The more complicated the shuffle, the easier it is for her to slip. Maybe she forgets which story she told you on which platform. Maybe she accidentally leaves a muted chat visible in her notifications. Lies are fragile when stretched across too many channels. Still, apps are just digital tools. The most chilling red flag isn't in the words she sends, it's in the silence she keeps. Because when her conversations with you suddenly go quiet, when she withholds instead of overshares, the silence itself becomes the loudest confession of all. Red flag 5. The sudden silence. Once upon a time, she couldn't go half an hour without sending you a text. Little updates, inside jokes, random photos of her lunch. Now, whole afternoons slip by without a single word. At first, you tell yourself she's just busy. Everyone gets swamped sometimes, right? But deep down, you know this isn't just about workload. It's about withdrawal. Silence is rarely neutral. When someone who used to overcommunicate suddenly undercommunicates, that's a signal. The gossip detail? She'll vanish for 6 hours, then pop back in with a lazy excuse like, "Sorry, I was slammed with emails." But while she was supposedly too busy to text you, she somehow found time to post a story on Instagram or reply instantly to someone else's comment. Another clue is how her tone shifts after these silences. She reappears overly sweet, almost rehearsed, as if she's padding the absence with charm. Or worse, she's irritated by your concern. "Why are you making such a big deal out of nothing? Can't I just have some space?" That defensiveness isn't about space. It's about protecting the silence that covered her tracks. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Silence often speaks louder than lies. When someone has something to hide, they cut down communication, not because they're too busy, but because every extra word is a risk. Fewer messages mean fewer slip-ups. Fewer details mean fewer contradictions. It's not neglect, it's strategy. Men make a fatal mistake here. They either accept the silence as normal or push too hard and get labeled insecure. But the right move is to watch how the silence lines up with her stories. Does she disappear exactly when she's out with Lisa again? Does every blackout happen during those new gym nights? Patterns reveal what words don't, but silence is just one layer. Beneath it lies something even more telling, not the absence of words, but the subtle change in how she speaks when she does open her mouth. Because once her tone shifts, once the voice you thought you knew sounds different, the mask starts to crack, and that's the next red flag. Red flag 6, the tone shift. You know her voice better than anyone. Its rhythm, its warmth, the way it softens when she's genuinely present with you. That's why the smallest change should stop you cold. When her tone suddenly sharpens, or worse, becomes overly sweet in moments where it doesn't fit, that's not just mood, it's performance. Here's the gossip detail. The woman who used to call you babe, without thinking, now switches to your full name, like she's deliberately creating distance. Or she leans into syrupy politeness, laughing too hard at things that aren't funny, layering every word with forced charm. Both shifts tell the same story. Her natural rhythm has been interrupted. She's compensating. Tone changes are subtle, but they're some of the hardest to fake consistently. A lie doesn't just live in the words, it leaks through the delivery. Her voice might crack when you ask an innocent question. She might rush through a sentence that should feel casual. Or she pauses just a second too long before answering, as though editing herself in real time. And then there's the irritation. When you gently point out a contradiction, instead of answering, she snaps, "Why are you interrogating me?" That's not a reaction to your words. It's a defense mechanism, an attempt to turn the spotlight back onto you. Because deep down, she knows her own tone betrayed her before the sentence was even finished. Men often ignore these shifts because they don't want to seem paranoid. But ignoring tone is like ignoring the smoke before the fire. It's not about one sharp word or one fake laugh. It's about the pattern. Every unnatural change in tone is a crack in the mask, and the more cracks appear, the harder it is for her to hold the act together. But here's the twist. Tone alone doesn't just reveal lies. It sets the stage for the most manipulative weapon of all. Because once her voice shifts, she uses it not just to cover guilt, but to twist the knife in your mind. And that's where the most dangerous red flag begins, the guilt inversion. Red flag 7, the guilt inversion. This one is brutal because it flips the entire game. Instead of defending herself, she makes you feel like the one on trial. Ask why she's late and she doesn't explain. She attacks. "Why are you so controlling? My dad used to act like that with my mom." Suddenly, you're not the man who raised a reasonable question. You're the villain reenacting her childhood trauma. That's not conversation. That's manipulation. The gossip detail. She'll casually throw in a story about a friend's jealous boyfriend who ruined everything by not trusting her. Translation: She's planting the idea that your suspicion makes you just as pathetic. And if you fall for it, she wins twice. She hides her lie, and she trains you never to question her again. This tactic works because guilt is heavy. A man who cares about his relationship doesn't want to be seen as insecure or controlling. She knows that. So, instead of offering facts, she weaponizes your empathy. She makes you doubt your instincts, not her story. And that's the deadliest trick, convincing you that protecting your dignity is actually harming her. Look for the pattern. Every time you raise a concern, the conversation shifts from her actions to your flaws. She doesn't explain where she was. She accuses you of being paranoid. She doesn't address the missing hours. She demands to know why you're so negative lately. And if you push further, she flips the script again, crying or storming out, making you feel like the cruel one for even asking. The truth, that emotional reversal isn't an accident, it's a shield. The louder she makes you question yourself, the less you question her. But guilt is only the rehearsal. Once she's mastered flipping your suspicions back on you, she moves to the most unsettling tactic of all. Because when she starts painting you a perfect future, while secretly writing you out of it, that's the final red flag you can't afford to ignore. Red flag 8, the future fantasy. This one is the cruelest because it doesn't look like a red flag at all. On the surface, it feels like love. She talks about next summer's vacation, about buying a house in the suburbs, about growing old together on some porch swing you haven't even built yet. But behind every rosy promise is a darker reality. She's building a future in words only, not in action. Here's the gossip detail. She casually says, "Maybe we should visit Greece next year," even though she hasn't sat on the couch beside you in weeks. Or she starts talking about family plans right after a fight, dangling visions of children and anniversaries, as if they can erase the silence that came before. It's not commitment, it's distraction. The trick is psychological. When she paints you a future, she's giving you something to hold on to, so you don't look too closely at the present. You stop asking about the late nights, the phone turned face down, the hours lost at the gym, because you're too busy daydreaming about a life she has no intention of delivering. And here's the sting. Those promises aren't always for you. Sometimes they're borrowed from the conversation she's having elsewhere, recycled and handed to you as a pacifier. Notice the mismatch. She speaks in glowing detail about tomorrow, but her effort today is gone. No affection, no presence, no consistency, just fantasies on repeat. And when you question the gap between her words and her behavior, she doubles down with even bigger promises. You'll see, everything will make sense when we move. That's not reassurance, that's smoke and mirrors. The truth? The future fantasy is the final mask. It's how she buys time, while her real life drifts further from you. And by the time you realize it, you're not holding a plan. You're holding an illusion she never intended to keep. Because once a woman starts selling you a future she doesn't live in today, the betrayal is already complete. And that's where your story with her truly ends. See you in the next video.